Hello and welcome to Filling the Sink, a podcast from Catalan News. I'm Lorcan Doherty and today we're talking about energy. Solar, wind, nuclear, fossil fuels, energy makes the world go round. But on an ever-warming planet, the question of where it comes from is increasingly urgent. As well as the green energy transition and the climate crisis, geopolitical tensions and energy sovereignty are also shaping the debate. Coming up on this episode of Filling the Sink, we're looking at the state of play in Catalonia, and I'm joined today by Cillian Shields. Hello, Cillian.
Lorcan, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Cillian, we're going to get stuck into this debate on energy, but I think it's worth starting with a reminder that it's just over a year ago now that we had a blackout across the Iberian Peninsula.
Yeah, it's kind of the issue that kind of brought the idea back in mind, looking back a year on from that very singular, very unique event that happened just over a year ago, April 28th, 2025. More than 50 million people across the Iberian Peninsula that day were left without electricity for many, many hours. The world came to a halt here. Many businesses were forced to shut. The Barcelona metro stopped running, and information was scarce. In their official investigation, the EU experts have pointed to cascading overvoltage and overall a perfect storm of different reasons linked to multiple interacting factors as the cause of this historic blackout. So not really one kind of person or body that we can point the finger of blame at.
No, and because of that, there has been a bit of a blame game going on. There's also been some concrete actions that have been taken. But in terms of this blame game, if you like, Spain's competition watchdog, the CNMC, they've launched more than 60 separate proceedings as part of its wider investigation. Most of the cases involve the major utility companies, Iberdrola, Endesa, Naturgy. And investigations have also been opened into Spain's grid operator, Red Eléctrica, for a very serious alleged infringement, and also nuclear operators as well. So it's not that they're assigning blame to any of these particular...
Everyone had a part to play.
Everyone had a part to play, or it's also about how they reacted to the initial blackout as well,
true.
When it was evident that it was underway.
These accusations have also been met with counter-accusations then, of course, just to make the story a little bit more dramatic. Red Eléctrica, as you mentioned, the Spanish grid operator, they're now pointing the finger of blame, or at least accusations at the competition regulator, the CNMC. They're accusing them of a conflict of interest and a lack of precision in their investigations into the blackout. And they're, of course, calling for the case to be dropped, which... might not fill you with confidence, but
they've said that they're being asked to prove their innocence, which obviously is not how these things normally work. And across the industry, the utility companies they've operated that Red Eléctrica was aware of voltage issues in the grid, while Red Eléctrica points to alleged failures by the power plants to manage voltage as well. But this blame game goes on. But there have also been some concrete actions that we've seen since this blackout.
What have we learned from it, basically? We've all learned what generators are. Here in the office in the Agencia Catalana de Noticias, we had a generator. We were able to continue operating. Barcelona's metro system will now soon be equipped with a generator. Now, that's not to ensure mobility for the entire time of any potential blackout, but rather just to ensure that trains will reach their next destination, so that people won't be stuck in tunnels underground, essentially.
Also to make sure all the signage, the screens are working, the announcements are working, so at least people are informed of what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. We're also going to see some updates from the Catalan Water Agency. They've presented a plan to ensure essential water services will be able to continue for at least 24 hours in the event of a future large-scale power outage. We have to remember that last year, during the blackout, nearly 500,000 people, 400,000 people were left without water in the Barcelona metropolitan area. And that's a pretty grim state of affairs that definitely we'll want to avoid.
Yeah. If we remember, in the aftermath of the power outage, there was a lot of speculation. I heard it on the street. We saw it on social media. Essentially blaming renewables. The European Commission and Spain's national grid operator, they ruled out that the blackout was caused by an excess of renewable energy. Within the renewable industry, there has also been changes as a result of the blackout, though.
Yeah, precisely. And I think these changes kind of reflect also the increasing role that renewables have in the country's energy landscape at the moment. So as things were before that blackout, producers of electricity from renewable sources had no part to play in the voltage control functions across the whole network. But now, since that outage, renewable generation has taken a much greater role in supporting the real-time voltage regulation in the grid.
Okay, so we're now just over 1 year on from the blackout. So we thought it'd be a good idea to take a look at the situation when it comes to energy in Catalonia at the minute, especially when it comes to renewables. Here's a report from Telma Altez Safond.
Catalonia has a renewable energy problem. While Spain and European Union accelerate the green transition, Catalonia remains near the bottom of the rankings. Today, only 1/5 of the electricity generated in Catalonia comes from renewable sources. And more than 60% of energy still depends on nuclear power. Here's Jeroni Fernus, the president of the Chemical Industry Commission of the Industrial Engineers of Catalonia.
Està clar també que les renovables tenen grans avantatges, però tenen una realitat, i és que no sempre fa sol i no sempre fa vent. Per tant, quan no fa sol i no fa vent, has de tindre solucions. I una de les solucions doncs, és, en un moment determinat, les centrals de cicle combinat amb gas. Una altra solució és el emmagatzemament, però de grans quantitats d'electricitat.
Catalonia has multiplied its solar capacity in recent years. More than 200 new photovoltaic parks have already been approved, but are still awaiting construction. But renewables still generate just 20% of electricity, far below the Spanish average, which sits at over 55%. At the same time, Catalonia is becoming an unexpected leader in one strategic sector, batteries. Daniel Pérez is the CEO of Energética and chair of the government working group on energy transition.
Que Catalunya ara mateix és líder en potència, en tramitació, en potència en punts d'accés i connexió concedits a tot Espanya. És la comunitat que més projectes de bateries està tramitant, amb bastanta diferència, a més. I això es deu, com a mínim en part, a que el Parlament va aprovar el decret llei que era pioner en la regulació de bateries.
The idea is storing solar energy during the day and using it later when demand peaks at night.
Ara mateix el pic que tenim el tenim a les 8-9 del vespre, no? Imagineu-vos, la gent arriba a casa, comença a encendre la llum, a cuinar, a consumir, però ja no hi ha sol. Aquest moment és el moment crític, perquè després, a partir de les 10 a les 11, el consum baixa un altre cop perquè la gent se'n va a dormir. No? Però aquestes hores així, de 8, 9, 10, són les hores on el preu de l'energia puja i on la demanda puja, i no tenim energia. Si poguéssim emmagatzemar sol durant aquestes 2-3 hores i que en comptes d'haver de consumir de la xarxa i cremar gas, poguéssim tenir energia de bateries i de bombejos durant aquestes 2-3 hores, bona part del problema estaria solucionat.
But batteries alone will not solve the problem. Catalonia still needs a massive expansion of renewable generation. According to the Catalan government's own roadmap, renewable capacity must multiply more than tenfold by 2050. Industry associations, meanwhile, believe the sector is on the right course.
Els objectius del 2030, en matèria d'energia solar fotovoltaica, no som tan lluny a poder-los complir.
That is Salvador Salat, the Catalan delegate of the Spanish Photovoltaic Union. The industry says projects are ready, but many remain blocked by slow access to the electricity grid.
Doncs nosaltres el que demanem és: estem preparats per poder fer la feina? Estem preparats per poder arribar al 2030 i respecte a l'energia solar fotovoltaica complir amb els nostres objectius? Si us plau, deixeu-nos accedir a la xarxa.
But as renewable projects expand, so does opposition. Across rural Catalonia, local platforms are protesting against large solar parks on agricultural land. One of them is Salvam la Llera, or Save the Riverbank, in the Girona region. Paco Lifante is a spokesperson for the platform.
Estem disposats a defensar un territori i volem fer una transició energètica sostenible, que participin els veïns, que tothom sigui conscient del que suposa el canvi energètic. No és un canvi que sí i ja està. I aquí tenim molt en compte, com per exemple passa aquí a Sant Jordi o en els altres municipis, que ja funcionen 2 comunitats energètiques que funcionen la mar de bé, que són una alternativa molt viable que està demostrant que tot això és possible.
Here is Consol Riera, another spokesperson.
I el que estem veient és que estan convertint aquest país en una fàbrica de produir energia per portar-la no sabem a on, però on la gent del territori, a part de que tot aquest territori seran zones de sacrifici, perquè se'n diuen així, zones de sacrifici, que realment considerem totalment injustes i no sabem on anirà aquesta energia, perquè aquesta energia no reverteix sobre el territori.
Thanks to Telma for that report, and we'll be hearing from Telma again shortly on energy cooperatives. A lot to unpack there, Killian. The headline figures again, just to remind you then. So in Catalonia, 60% of energy comes from nuclear power. That's a big part of the reason why only 20% of electricity is generated from renewable sources. Now, that 20% is far below the Spanish average, which is over 55%, and also well below the EU average, where almost 50% of energy in the EU comes from renewable sources. Actually, just last year in 2025 in the European Union, wind and solar generated more electricity than fossil fuels for the first time. What about in Catalonia then?
Mika, we're getting there, huh? In Catalonia, if we're to compare with countries in the European Union, it beats only Czechia. Only Czechia has a lower share of around 17% when it comes to renewables. And across Spain, only the Balearic Islands are doing worse than Catalonia in this regard. They have just under 13%. If we're to dig a little deeper within the renewables in Catalonia, it's hydropower that leads the way with 11% of the total electricity that we produce here, followed by wind with 8% and solar by less than 1%. 0.9% comes from solar. So that's clearly a huge potential for growth when it comes to solar in this very sunny country of ours.
Bear in mind also that Catalonia has a target of generating more than half of its electricity from renewable sources by 2030.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't look very
20% at the moment.
20% at the minute.
50% in 4 years.
Doesn't look very realistic, does it, at the minute? Mm-hmm. On solar power then, we heard in Telma's report then that there are over 200 solar farms that are signed off, all approved, but still awaiting construction. Do we know why that might be the case?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of opposition really at local level. We have to consider that a lot of these projects are being considered for rural areas. So the biggest opposition voice to this is the impact that'll have on rural land, especially agricultural land, natural areas, forested areas. We heard from one group in Telma's report, Salvem la Tierra, which says that it does support the energy transition, but it favours community energy projects, rather than, in this case, the proposed Julia Solar Park, which would cover 93 hectares across 9 municipalities. That's a huge piece of land.
Yeah, and farmers are often come out opposed to solar farms. And, well, anyone who has seen Carla Simon's Alcaraz knows about this debate. No, in that case, it was peach trees that were being destroyed basically to make way for solar farms. So,
like the livelihoods, the activities of generations of families really that have toiled the land. It's a delicate topic really that can really strike at the core of many families' identities really in these agricultural parts of the country.
Absolutely. Now we've come across a few examples in Catalonia, in Western Catalonia, where people have started to combine solar panels with agricultural projects, and I think it's a really interesting way forward, potential way forward, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. We've got one in Mollerussa out in Western Catalonia.
If you look at where your apples are bought, it'll probably say Mollerussa, in my case anyway.
So one project that we were looking at, our colleagues in the ACN were looking at, there they've got solar panels being installed above apple trees. This is a very interesting project, kind of combining solar power with agricultural activity. This is a project that's going to last 5 years, but researchers have already seen some advantages. The trees are consuming less water and they're being better protected from weather phenomena, something which we've done podcasts about. These horrific storms are happening with more frequency and more strength. But there's also some disadvantages too, such as a drop in production of around 25% of the apple harvests. But we can caveat this drop in production with the energy gained for the farmer. So it's not just a net loss.
The other project then that we saw is it's part of the Segarra Garrigues canal irrigation system, and it's these floating solar panels. So they sit on top of reservoirs, which are used for irrigation, and I think that's a genius solution. No, it doesn't.
Brilliant.
The water. You've got the water. You've got the this body surface, perfect for putting solar panels on top. And this particular project will produce the equivalent of the annual consumption of 700 homes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the benefits are also multifaceted there as well, because there's going to be less heat battering the water. It's not going to require as much cooling. So there's benefits to be seen all across the board, really.
Yeah.
Both of these initiatives really show that agriculture and solar, they don't necessarily have to compete. There are ways in which they can coexist, and even benefit one another.
Moving on from renewables then, Kellyn, what about nuclear energy? This is kind of the elephant in the room, isn't it?
Yeah. It's quite interesting that we've gotten this far in a podcast about energy, and we're only really getting to the source of 60% of Catalonia's energy at this point. In Catalonia, nuclear energy is the largest production source. We've got power plants in Ascó and Vandellós, and like I said, they account for around 60% of production. We have to recall that on one hand, this is low carbon and reliable power, but on the other hand, it comes with costs, it comes with high costs, it comes with long-term safety concerns as well. It's a very interesting social and political debate. If we were to look at it on a European scale, France, one of the biggest players in the EU, they're very pro-nuclear, whereas Germany, for example, has phased out already all of their nuclear power stations. Spain at the moment has no plans to build more nuclear power plants, betting instead on renewables, like we've seen, all these projects that have the green light but are ready to start production. But it is a hot topic at the moment of potentially extending the lifespans of some existing nuclear facilities, especially considering the ongoing electrification of the Catalan economy, ever-rising tourism. I mean, we're only using up more and more electricity, and at the moment, the power plants, at least in Catalonia, they're due to close in 2032 and 2035. So we really have to look at the long-term projection of this, where we're going. If they're to close within the next 10 years, that's a large part of our energy source that we're going to have to replace somehow.
Yeah, 60%, as you said. Across Spain, it's 20%. So quite a difference. And on a political level across Spain, actually, the leader of the main opposition party, the People's Party, he visited, on the anniversary of the blackout, he visited the Ascó nuclear power plant, and he has promised to extend the lifespan of all nuclear power plants in Spain, including those in Catalonia. They currently have a lifespan of 40 years. And as you said, we're looking at the ones in Catalonia closing the last one in 2035.
Yeah, precisely, yeah. The electricity companies that own these nuclear power plants, they insist that they can continue to operate safely for longer than these projected closure dates. They say that they also look to the United States as the benchmark in this regard, where their power stations can exist for 60 years or even longer.
Environmentalists that our colleagues have spoken to, Ecologists in Action and Greenpeace, they argue that there are no technical or economic reasons to extend the lifetime of these nuclear power plants. They say they're approaching the end of their operational life and the energy costs are increasingly high.
Yeah, I read that, and no economic reasons stood out to me, I suppose. I kind of struggle to see that as a valid argument, to be honest with you, because if we're to close down the source of 60% of our electricity, I mean, we plain and simply have to replace that somehow. No matter what solution it is, it's going to come at some sort of cost. Added to that as well, the geopolitical situation, the US and Israel's war in Iran and the Middle East has caused the price of natural gas, which is used by combined cycle plants, to double, according to a report from PricewaterhouseCoopers. PricewaterhouseCoopers also calculates too that a potential closure of one of these power plants in 2025 would have caused a 24% increase in the electricity bill for homes and small businesses and a 35% increase for large companies, with a total impact of 8.8 billion euros. What does that mean for the average domestic consumer? An increase in bills of 144 euro. So there's an economic impact, definitely.
Yeah, and the argument is that, okay, we have renewables, but alongside that, if we lose nuclear power, if we reduce nuclear power, then you're exposing yourself more to variations in the price of gas, which is obviously the other major kind of producer as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, renewables are definitely the way forward, but are we going to be able to roll them out in such a short time? If we can, fantastic, but if not, I mean, nuclear is a reliable way. If there's no high-profile disasters, it is a safe form of energy.
This is the thing about nuclear, isn't it? If it goes wrong, it goes very wrong.
Precisely.
But you were looking at some figures that say...
I mean, yeah, it's my personal opinion that it seems more dangerous. It has a public perception because of a couple of very high-profile disasters in the past couple of decades, but the reality is that it's one of the safest sources of energy when comparing deaths per terawatt hour of energy produced. I mean, fossil fuels are obviously the big killer with the greenhouse gases that they emit. They make people sick. They cause a lot of people to die kind of slowly, kind of silently. And deaths related to nuclear power are more in line with wind and solar power.
Doesn't emit greenhouse gases, as you say. It does require very careful management and costly management to ensure that nuclear waste obviously doesn't have negative environmental effects. We're going to go back to renewables now. As we heard, solar still lagging behind wind and hydro in overall generation in Catalonia. But it's actually the fastest growing of Catalonia's energy system. This is actually being driven by a boom over the past 5 years or so in self-consumption. So according to the Catalan Energy Institute, more than 138 self-consumption solar installations were in operation at the end of 2025. So solar panels, basically. That's up 12% on the previous year. Have a listen to this report from Telma Alteix Safont.
Energy communities are growing fast in Catalonia. The goal is the same: produce renewable energy locally, share it, and depend less on large centralized systems. They are usually non-profit groups which come together to produce, share, and manage renewable energy in their own area.
A la comarca, més de 2.000 famílies ja formen part d'aquestes comunitats i estan rebent energia o rebran els pròxims mesos energia d'instal·lacions comunitàries.
Jill Salvans is the technical manager of the Osona Local Energy Agency. Since 2021, around 30 energy communities have been created in Osona and Lluçanès, two rural counties in central Catalonia, with growth accelerating during the energy crisis linked to war in Ukraine. Today, more than 100 energy communities are registered on the Catalan government's participation platform. Members benefit from lower costs, shared electricity, and participation in local decision-making.
Vam decidir un únic model a cada poble i replicar-lo a la resta de municipis de la comarca, d'Osona i del Lluçanès. El territori ha de ser capaç de generar la seva pròpia energia i també, fins i tot, hem de començar a impulsar projectes d'emmagatzematge, de bateries, i, per tant, el que hem de fer és descarregar aquestes xarxes tan tensionades, generant de forma distribuïda l'energia al país, energia renovable, i, per tant, tots aquests projectes que impulsen les comunitats jo crec que faran que el sistema elèctric sigui més robust i més resistent.
On the municipal level, one of the most advanced examples is in Caldes de Montbui, near Barcelona. The town has installed solar panels on schools, libraries, and other public buildings, then shares that energy with local residents. Here's Caldes de Montbui's Climate Action Councillor, Jordi Martín.
Nosaltres hem fet fins a un total de 27 instal·lacions en equipaments i solars públics, en els quals hi hem posat plaques fotovoltaiques, i aleshores les famílies que ho sol·liciten poden accedir a 1 quilowatt d'aquestes plaques fotovoltaiques. A dia d'avui a Caldes ja s'està fent el 15% de tota l'energia que es consumeix.
The system is expected to reach around 600 households, but one major challenge remains: storage.
Però què passa si cau la xarxa? Què és el que va passar fa un any? Que tota aquesta energia que s'aboca a la xarxa, com que la xarxa cau, ens trobem amb la mateixa situació que es troba qualsevol altre ciutadà que només està embrancat a la xarxa. Per tant, d'alguna manera, el que hi ha és aquest dèficit en el que és la distribució, tant de baixa com de mitja, que en el seu moment, ara mateix, sense ser-ne expert, però el que s'està veient és que cada cop hi ha més energia fotovoltaica, més energia renovable que està entrant al sistema i que la xarxa potser no està a punt per poder absorbir aquesta energia.
At the same time, large-scale cooperatives are moving in the same direction. Som Energia, based in Girona, is now the largest energy cooperative in Europe by membership, with more than 87,000 members and nearly 120,000 contracts. Nuri Palmada manages new generation projects at the cooperative.
Actualment a Som Energia tenim 11 plantes fotovoltaiques sobre terreny que estan ja funcionant. També en tenim en construcció, ara n'estem construint 3, també fotovoltaiques, 2 de les quals ja les estem també construint, la idea és hibridar-les, posar-hi bateries, i també en tenim unes 5 en promoció, i també estem promovent la hibridació. La hibridació és posar bateries en algunes de les nostres plantes fotovoltaiques. Estaríem generant més o menys uns 50 gigawatts hora a l'any, que això sumat a tots els socis que tenen plantes també individuals, o sigui que tenen autoconsum individual a casa seva, doncs ens estem generant més o menys un 20% de l'energia que consumim tots els socis i persones que tenen contracte amb Som Energia.
The remaining electricity is still purchased from the market, but with certified renewable guarantees. Víctor Carreño is Som Energia's co-general coordinator.
Que Som Energia és una cooperativa sense ànim de lucre, és a dir, tot el que ingressa la cooperativa es reinverteix en la seva pròpia activitat i, per tant, no en enriquir un consell directiu o en assolir uns resultats, diguéssim, que potencien aquest model de negoci. Aquest any ja són més de 120.000 contractes, amb la voluntat doncs de créixer també en aquest sentit i posicionar-nos de cara al 2030 doncs, amb aproximadament 200.000 contractes.
Thanks again to Telma for that report. Transport represents almost a quarter of Europe's greenhouse gas emissions. Road transport is by far the biggest emitter within the sector. It accounts for more than 70% of all greenhouse gas emissions from transport, which is why electrifying cars has become a central part of Europe's climate strategy. What's the situation in Catalonia?
I think in Catalonia, like around the world, electric cars, electric mobility is becoming more and more popular. I think the main reasons are the vehicles are getting cheaper, the technology is getting better, the ranges are getting longer, there's better charging coverage as well, and overall this translates into growing user confidence. At the same time, it's still a minority sector within the automobile industry, but it's one that's in transition, and it's one that's growing very, very quickly. If we're to look at the first couple of months of 2026, January to April specifically, 72% of cars registered, new cars registered in Catalonia in the first few months of 2026 were either electric or hybrid. It's the vast majority. This is already a major player in the automobile industry right now. This, compared to the year before, was 10 percentage points higher. So it's growing all the time. There were over 33,000 electric vehicles registered in this time. And electric vehicles now comprise 13% of the total car market, while plug-in hybrids stand for around 11.6%.
Okay, so there's definitely been a market shift away from your regular combustion engine cars. Registrations of these fell sharply in this period we're looking at, so January to April 2026, down 15% on the previous year. Diesel sales collapsing. They now account for only just over 2% of the market. So what cars are people buying? What vehicles are people buying? Well, non-plug-in hybrids account for nearly half of the market now, so 47.7%. So they
still use a little bit of petrol, but it's better than totally combustible engines, I suppose.
Exactly. And petrol cars making up just over a fifth, 21.4%. And what's driving this shift, as you said, Cillian, are these lower running costs and the improving range. You've got an example for us?
Yeah, our colleagues at ACN spoke with one driver who explained that he can travel 350 kilometres at a cost of just €5 from home charging. Now, he compared that with his previous combustion car, and he would make that same journey with €35 fuel. This is a huge difference, and this is a difference that has grown rapidly in just the space of a few years. And it's very easy to foresee, I think, the development where this is going to be in the next 5 years. The technology is improving greatly and very rapidly.
One of the issues around this is charging points. Obviously, people have charging points at home. But in terms of public charging points, the question is, are there enough? Catalonia has nearly 12,000 public charging points, which is actually the most out of any autonomous community in Spain. And that number has tripled in just the past 4 years. Most charges, though, there is an issue that especially the public charges typically tend to be slower than the home chargers, and they need between 3 and 19 hours to fully charge the vehicle. The sector says that they're not well signposted, that sometimes they don't work reliably. Public authorities say that the charges they have, though, they're actually lying unused about 90% of the time, and they say that often that the real shortage is not charges, but cars using them.
I think it's just teething problems, really, for a fairly new technology that is really kind of impacting society. You know, this is also public space as well as market trends, what we're buying. So, we're at the start of this whole phase, really, of electric vehicles.
And policy is changing around this too, isn't it?
That's true, yeah. I mean, there's big incentives, really, to buy electric vehicles. That's also one thing that's really helping the market growth. Spain has a couple of schemes, really. It's replacing its old Moves 3 scheme with a thing called Auto Plus. And this is part of a broader Auto 2030 plan. Basically, they want to simplify support, speed up payments, direct discounts at the dealership. So aid can reach up to €4,500 for new or used electric and plug-in hybrid cars, with an extra 25% for vehicles made in Europe or in Spain. There's also a mandatory dealer discount of at least €1,000. And as well, IRPF, income tax reduction. There's a deduction of 15% for buying an electric vehicle or installing a charger in your home. And that's going to remain in force at least until the end of this year. And that's going to be capped at €3,000 for vehicle. And it's great. Like it's a sector that's growing. It also has required user confidence, and these kind of incentives are a way to get people on board, really.
Within the industry, they're broadly positive. There's a bit of caution. Jaume Roura, who heads up Catalonia's Association of Vehicle Vendors, he says electrification still has room to grow. He says that at the minute, in 2026, hybrid models still have a big advantage in flexibility. He points out that when they're operating in their electric range, that gives them up to 200 kilometres, but from combustion, that can rise up to 900 kilometres. He also points out that those non-plug-in hybrids are also cheaper to produce than the fully electric vehicles as well.
Another different angle being explored by some is this model of sharing an electric car. There's these initiatives, programs that you can sign up for. There's one here operating in Catalonia called Som Mobilitat, We Are Mobility, and that has grown from a fleet of just 4 cars in 2017 to now up to 150 across Catalonia. It now plans to add family-sized vehicles with longer range as well, beyond the 250, 300-kilometre models that it used before.
Electric vehicles are taking off. They're only going to grow and grow. Now, one thing about this is it's going to increase the demands, the energy demands, and electricity demand is expected to grow in the years ahead. No time to get into it now, but maybe another day. Data centers, AI, electrification in general of industry, for example, as well. Yeah. And all this, I think, Gillian, just means that the debate over how we generate, store and distribute energy is more important than ever. That's us for today. Do check catalannews.com and our social media for more on this topic. Thanks for listening and watching. A big thank you to all our colleagues at ACN, the Catalan News Agency, whose reporting on the energy debate has made this episode possible. Thanks to Telma Altez-Safont, and thank you to you, Gillian, as well.
My thanks to you, Lorcan. Thanks for having me.
Remember, you can subscribe to Filling the Sink wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back for you with another episode next month, marking the 100th anniversary of the death of Catalan architect Antoni Gaudí. Until then, from me, Lorcan Doherty, and all of us here at Catalan News, take care. Bye for now. Adieu.